Hello and welcome to Abjay Series. In the heart of West Africa, Burkina Faso has endured decades of turmoil and untold hardship due to the unstable leadership of the African country. From years of dictatorship to an unpopular democratic government and constant coups hijacking the leadership of the country, the citizens of Burkina Faso have for a long time yearned for some stable form of leadership. But in 2022, a young military captain named Ibrahim Traore rose to power, promising stability and reform. Yet his methods have sparked debate. Is he a savior who will bring peace and prosperity, or a dictator in the making? Traore's rise to power was swift. Amidst growing anger at the government's handling of an Islamist insurgency, he led a bloodless coup, deposing the elected president. His supporters hailed him as a hero, a strong man who would restore order and security. It's been noted that since his takeover from power in a bloodless coup in 2022, he has enjoyed growing support from the citizens of Burkina Faso. Despite the support he seems to be getting, there has been over 3 attempts to wrest power from him, majorly from fellow military comrades who allegations claim may be supported by the French. But who exactly is Ibrahim Traore? Born in 1988 in Kera-Bandokui, Mohun Province, Burkina Faso, he was known to be a quiet guy who was very talented by his peers. From 2006, he studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou. He was part of the Association of Muslim Students and the Marxist Association Nationale des Étudiants du Burkina, ANEB. Traore joined the army in 2009 and soon after joining the army was sent to Morocco for anti-aircraft training before being transferred to an infantry unit in Kaya, a town in Burkina Faso's north. In 2014, he was promoted to lieutenant and joined MINUSMA, a United Nations peacekeeping force involved in the Mali war. In 2018, he was cited as one of MINUSMA soldiers who showed courage during major rebel attacks in the Tombouctou region. In 2020, just after being promoted as captain, Traore became disillusioned with his country's leadership because around this time he saw the widespread lack of equipment of Burkinabe soldiers. While politicians were handing out suitcases of money for bribery, he gradually became the spokesman for soldiers stationed in the north who were frustrated over their government. This frustration became his motivation to be part of a group of army officers that supported the January 2022 Burkina Faso coup d'etat that brought the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration military junta to power. He was rewarded for his efforts by serving as the head of an artillery regiment in Kaya in March 2022. Traore was part of the group of army officers that supported the January 2022 Burkina Faso coup that brought the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration military junta to power. As time went on, many supporters of the January coup became dissatisfied with the performance of Paul Henri Sandaogo Damiba, the junta's leader, who led the coup due to his inability to contain the jihadist insurgency. Traore later claimed that he and other officers had tried to get Damiba to refocus in quotes on the rebellion, but eventually opted to overthrow him as in quotes his ambitions were diverting away from what we set out to do. When Ibrahim Traore and his plotters launched their coup on 30th September, Traore still held the rank of captain. The operation was carried out with support of the Cobra units. In the direct aftermath of the coup, Traore declared himself the new head of the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration. On 6th October, he also assumed the position of interim president as head of state, supreme head of the armed forces. After taking office and assuming the role of the president of his country, he promised to hold democratic elections in July 2024. But the question is Is he bound to hold fast to his promise of restoring the country to a democratically elected government? The 20th century saw so many coups in Africa, both the bloody ones and the bloodless ones, that brought in several leaders who were young, charismatic, and highly loved and liked by the people. For instance, when Muammar Gaddafi took power over Libya in the 1960s, no one expected him to hold on to power for more than 40 years, though he was initially loved by the people when he took over power. Various military leaders in Nigeria who led coups in the country, with the exception of Olusegun Obasanjo, all promised to return the country to a democratic government but failed to keep the promise. Would Ibrahim Traore's story be different? Truth be told, Ibrahim Traore seems to have the unalloyed backing and support of the Burkinabe people. As president, Traore maintained an enigmatic and very formal behavior for which he had already been known before rising to power. He kept a tight control on his communication and carefully tried to present himself as a proper war leader, possibly to avoid the poor public image of his predecessors. His presidency has also seen an increase of pro-government propaganda in Burkinabe traditional media and social media. Politically, Le Monde journalist Sophie Duce described Traore as influenced by Marxism and Pan-Africanism. Many have likened him to the late former military leader of the country, Thomas Sankara. As leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore wanted to get rid of everything that had to do with post-colonialism, and to effect this, he expelled French forces assisting in fighting insurgents and terrorists in February 2023. He subsequently declared that, quote, "We really want to look at other horizons because we want win-win partnerships, supporting the diversification of Burkina Faso's international partnerships." Shortly after, Traore's government expressed support for a federation with Mali and both invited Guinea. All three countries are under military leadership, and if it were to become a union, it would become the largest country ruled by a military junta. To replace French military support, Traore forged closer ties to Turkey and Russia. Traore declared a general mobilization of the population to support the military, as rebel forces continued to increase the rate of their attacks. Traore publicly pledged to reconquer all rebel-held areas and that there would be no negotiations until the insurgency had been greatly weakened. In the following month, Traore questioned the planned restoration of democracy for 2024, stating that the elections could not be held unless the insurgents were pushed back and the security situation had been improved, which invariably means he had no plans of returning to democracy after taking power in a bloodless coup. Recall, he had promised to return the country to a democratic government. One impressive feat by Ibrahim Traore, which hasn't gone unnoticed, is his fierce fight against insurgents and terrorists in Burkina Faso. Some of these terrorists had taken control of some areas of the country and were very daring, looting, maiming, and killing. 2 million people had been displaced by the violence since 2015, but by the end of August 2023, the government had claimed the return of more than 190,000 of them to their respective localities, touting a reconquest of territories once occupied by jihadist groups. No doubt, supporters of Traore's regime are hailing the, quote, strong decisions taken by 35-year-old Captain Traore. One such supporter said, quote, "There has been no failure. Our soldiers were under-equipped for the fight against terrorism, but with the arrival of Captain Traore, we have acquired enormous resources." Even as the Burkinabe people are praising Ibrahim Traore for his strides in stopping terrorism in his country, the Burkina Faso strongman is also facing some scrutiny by Western countries who have seen his close alliance with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Reuters and the New York Times, Traore was suspected of having a connection with Russian mercenary organization Wagner Group, due to having expressed anti-French and pro-Russian views. In one instance of such allegation, as Traore entered Ouagadougou, the nation's capital, supporters cheered, some waving Russian flags. The government of Ghana publicly alleged that Traore began collaborating with the Wagner Group following the coup, enlisting the mercenaries against the jihadist rebels. Traore denied this, claiming that our Wagner are the VDP, referencing the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. Also, to solidify this claim that he had Russian backing, on 29 July 2023, following the 2023 Russia-African Summit, Traore said that the people of his country support Russia and communicated that a decision had been made to reopen the Russian embassy, which was closed in 1992. According to the newspaper Le Monde, in May 2023, quote, the Traore regime seems for the time being to be favoring the use of its own forces in the fight against the jihadists and has not asked Wagner's Russia for help, end quote. Under Traore's rule, closer ties with Russia and other non-Western countries will be established since he denounced the new colonialism of the West and called for a new dawn for Africa. Traore's actions have earned him praise from many Africans and other third world countries who see him as a symbol of a new generation of African leaders who are unafraid to challenge the status quo and pursue their interests. However, some critics have warned that Traore is nothing but a power-hungry dictator who has no legitimacy or vision for his country. They point out that he came to power through violence and has not held any elections or consultations with the civil society. They also question his ability to deal with the multiple crises facing Burkina Faso, such as poverty, insecurity, displacement, and climate change. Also, it should be noted that Burkina Faso is one of the poorest countries in the world, with a per capita income of less than $800. It has been ravaged by a decade-long insurgency by Islamist groups linked Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, to who have killed thousands of people and displaced millions more. The country's economy has also suffered from the global fallout of the Russian war on Ukraine, which has caused inflation and shortages of basic goods. The previous coup leader, Paul Henry Damiba, who overthrew the elected government in January 2022, failed to address these issues and lost control of most of the country's territory to the militants. Traore has promised to restore stability and prosperity to Burkina Faso, but he faces many challenges and uncertainties. He has alienated France, which has been his country's main ally in the past and donor, and has secured a bit of support from Russia. Traore's rise to power marks a dramatic shift in Burkina Faso's history and politics. Whether he will be able to fulfill his promises and expectations remains to be seen, but for now he is one of Africa's most watched and controversial figures. It is unclear if he would hold on to power for the coming years or finally hand over to a democratically elected government. Also, Traore led his country, Burkina Faso, to form a confederacy with Mali and Niger as mentioned earlier, whose leaders are also military. It will be difficult to relinquish power and would most likely turn Burkina Faso into a dictatorship, just as history has often taught us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for joining us today. See you later.